about doing that. I mean, the president has been very clear in making sure that he does everything that he can to alleviate the pain that American families are feeling when it comes to gas prices.
This does nothing to fix supply. It actually supports demand at a time when demand can't keep up with supply. Moody's economist Mark Zandi, he told me that he is concerned that this could be inflationary, and there's no guarantee that energy companies are going to pass along the entire savings here. And then there's the fact that this money funds the building of highways at a time when the construction of the building of the highways has gone up because of rising costs for building material and labor. So there's a lot of issues here, and I think it does show why Obama in 2008 called it a gimmick.
But for us to suggest that 30 cents a day for 3 months is real relief, that's a real energy policy, means that we are not tackling the problem that has to be tackled. We are offering gimmicks. We can do better than that this time.
Sick burn.
So, for all those Republicans in Congress criticizing me today,
Hey, Poopy Pants, what's new?
for high gas prices in America, are you now saying we were wrong to support Ukraine?
Yep.
Are you saying we were wrong to stand up to Putin?
Yes.
Are you saying that we would rather have lower gas prices in America and Putin's iron fist in Europe?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm fucking saying.
I don't believe that.
Aw, he thinks we give a shit about what he believes. How adorable.
Look, I get the easy politics of the attack. I get that. But the simple truth is gas prices are up almost $2 a gallon because of Vladimir Putin's ruthless attack on Ukraine. And we wouldn't let him get away with it.
You dumb bastard.
So if this is all Putin's fault, then how do you explain all this inflation that happened before they invaded Ukraine? Does Putin have a fucking time machine?
In the world, we can just threaten anybody now with no consequences?
Look, the Republican Party has become the party of insurrection, revolt, and violence.
Oh, here comes an avalanche of bullshit.
Yeah. And they don't make any bones about it anymore. I mean, this guy should be, you didn't even see the ad, which I saw on CNN.
Yeah.
It's quite violent, and they're acting like it's funny. It's not funny. You know, the Democrats have the dinos, let's put it. The Democrats in name only, in a way. You could say Mansion and Cinema in that category. You don't see us threatening their lives. The Democrats are not the party of violence.
Wow. Stop it. Get some help.
There is a great deal of Americans where it is uncomfortable that they're spending more, but they are not going to go under. You know, you got to stop complaining when there's so many people who literally the inflation rate means they may only have 2 meals instead of 3. There are Americans who did extremely well in the last 2 years in the market. You still have your job. And yeah, it's costing you more for gas, but guess what? You're still going to take that holiday, that 4th of July vacation. You could still eat out. So I'm going to need you to calm down and back off.
That's garbage.
Stop looking at your portfolio. And you know what you can do with all that energy? Help other people. Help put some food on the table in somebody else's house because you have extra.
This bitch.
But overall, many Americans are not suffering as much as they think they are. And we can think things into existence because we are unrealistically fearful of something that hasn't happened yet. We don't know if we're in a recession yet. But overall, many Americans are not suffering as much as they think they are.
Shut that cunt's mouth or I'll come over there and start her head.
Inflation.
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 When demand is greater than supply, either you get shortages or you get price increases. And actually what we had was a mixture of both.
We are in an inflationary spiral.
66% of people polled expect inflation to get worse.
The value of the dollar since I was born has declined by 94% to 6 cents.
We are about to face one of the greatest periods of uncertainty in American history.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently. That's okay. Things are gonna be okay.
You don't have to go to hell. You're in hell. This is hell. This is hell. This is hell.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Then strangled them, and finally dismembered their bodies.
Right.
Then do
Available.
And homelessness and all that.
And now, the voice you've been waiting for.
There's a secret song at the center of the world, and its sound is like razors through flesh. I'm here to turn up the volume.
I'm kind of retarded.
Well, the guy who almost became governor of Florida back in 2018 instead of Ron DeSantis got indicted by the Justice Department this week on 19 felony counts of wire fraud and making false statements. Turns out that he had been funneling campaign contributions back to himself through an intermediary. Tisk tisk. You also may or may not recall that back in March of 2020, right as this pandemic was kicking off, Gillum was found in a hotel room with a bunch of prescription drugs and crystal meth and a male escort who was overdosing. Of course, Gillum claimed, "Oh, I don't know anything about these drugs." But there's a pile of meth sitting on the table. You don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And he actually came pretty close to beating DeSantis in 2018 and becoming governor. And if he had, you know what would have happened? They'd have made it go away, probably. They'd have said, "Listen, buddy, we're going to make this go away. We're going to keep it quiet. But now you belong to us." That's how politicians are really controlled. Not by buying them. No, you get some kind of career-ending dirt and you hold it over their head. So it's a damn good thing that our governor didn't end up being asshat with this kind of shit hanging over his head, because there would have been no bucking of the system. There would have been no, "Oh, well, you know what? We're actually going to reopen Florida. We don't think that destroying our economy here is the best way to deal with this. And you know what? We're not going to force people to get the jab either." And no, all of that, bye-bye. He would have been in lockstep with Dr. Fuckhead and what the rest of the goons were saying. And speaking of useless fucking people, the FDA has decided to ban the sale of Juul e-cigs. Now, this doesn't really affect me personally. I think vaping is stupid. But saying, "Oh no, a lot of teens are using these things, so we need to ban them," but there's a ton of other different kind of vapes that you're still going to be able to get, so it makes no fucking difference. And they're looking at some other nicotine crackdowns, but you know what they're not going to do is they're not going to tell these tobacco companies, "Hey, you need to start including an ingredients list. All the chemical additives that you put into your cigarettes, you need to put those in a label on the pack." You know why they're not going to do that? Because they don't give an actual fuck about any of us. This was only done because Juul is an imported foreign competitor, and just like with most things the government does, they're protecting the corporate interests with the deepest pockets. They were never even supposed to be in the business of banning things or telling us what we can and can't put in our bodies. The FDA was started off to be a labeling accuracy type of agency to make sure that what you bought is what you actually got. All that other bullshit came later on when they decided to grant themselves more and more fucking power. But they don't use that power for good. No, they use it to help their corporate buddies out. It's the same thing with Monsanto. They have absolutely no interest in looking into Monsanto and Roundup, even though right now you've got class action lawsuits going on. You may have noticed the commercials about this, that, "Oh, you know, if you came down with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and you were an agriculture worker and exposed to massive amounts of Roundup, then you can sue and get money." Never mind the fact that this Roundup soaks into the soil and then gets taken up by the plants that we end up eating. And even though they've classified Roundup as a probable carcinogen, they're not going to actually do any fucking thing about it because they don't care. Why? Because Monsanto had deep pockets. You know who was on the board at Monsanto for quite some time? Bill Gates, of course. And Roundup is still being sold. You can go to Home Depot or Walmart and still buy that shit and put it on your lawn. It runs into the water supply, and they don't filter that shit out. Instead, they protect Monsanto, the same company that brought you Agent Orange. Of course, a few years back, Monsanto became a subsidiary of Bayer, the lovely jackasses that got busted selling HIV-tainted blood, shipping it all over the world and infecting tens of thousands of people. And back during World War II, they were a subsidiary of IG Farben. That was the company that made Zyklon B. You know, the gas that the Nazis used in the chambers in the death camps? That was made by the company that owned Bayer. Now Bayer owns Monsanto. I guess it's kind of fitting them teaming up with the purveyors of Agent Orange. Oh, but I'm sure that Agent Orange, that's a much different thing than glyphosate. But actually, Agent Orange was a composite of two different chemicals, one of those chemicals being the same chemical that glyphosate is. So you've got this chemical compound, Agent Orange, that caused veterans from Vietnam to come back with all different kinds of cancer. Then their kids were having birth defects because of it. So how do you determine that out of the two chemicals that made up Agent Orange, that this one is safe? Did they take a bunch of people and expose them to it? No, because that would be very fucking unethical. They just said, no, we've looked at it in the lab and we're convinced that this stuff is safe. So go ahead, put it on your lawn, put it on your plants, whatever, do whatever. And even now that it's been proven that in large amounts with the agricultural workers that it grows tumors like fucking Miracle Grow, we're still gonna be like, oh, you know what, I'm sure having it in our food and water supply is fine because it's in lower amounts, right? It's not gonna be a problem at all. This has nothing to do with the spiraling cancer rates in the past 30, 40 years. All that's just a big coincidence. Because if there was a problem, the FDA would tell us. I mean, that's what they're there for, right? I also saw this story about how the state legislators in Pennsylvania got a gun control bill shot down by basically adding in language that turned it into a constitutional carry bill. Now that alone is pretty hilarious and a pretty smart idea. But another thing that was funny was they just literally copy and pasted from the gun control bill that New York had just passed. And when I say copy and paste, they had the same misspelling for muzzle brake. And if you see the lines are numbered and where the 44 is, it winds up getting sloppily copied and pasted into the Pennsylvania bill. That's literally the only explanation as to how that number 44 ended up exactly where it did in this bill. So good, I'm glad it got shot down. As far as I'm concerned, all the gun control they're trying to pass is unconstitutional, and all these idiots pushing it should be openly mocked for being so fucking stupid. And while we're on the subject of being mocked for being stupid, we'll get to the president right after this little break. Please, consider liking, subscribing, sharing this video, or leaving a comment. Because every time you do nothing, Vladimir Putin will shoot another puppy. Boy, what a president we've got there, huh? Can't seem to ride a bike, has problems going up steps, can't be around children without trying to sniff them, has to have detailed instructions like they're written for an 8-year-old on how to give a basic run-of-the-mill presser. And luckily he had wrote some little notes on the back of the card for himself, so he held it up and gave a beautiful HD shot to the cameras. I mean, look at the language of that. You take your seat. What fucking seat is he gonna take? God. You thank participants. You depart. These are the kind of basic instructions that you would have to give a child that isn't. It's hard to believe there are still people trying to defend him and say, oh no, he's fine, there's no cognitive decline at all. And really this just makes it clear what many people have suspected for a long time, that the real power comes from behind the scenes, lurking in the shadows. Many men behind many curtains. That's been quite clear for some time now, but it's getting pretty hard to deny at this point with this fucking clown. And it's not just Joey skid marks, it's the whole fucking administration, really. The whole group of them is like one giant soup sandwich. The other day we had the Secretary of Energy trying to calm people down and put the gas prices that we're paying into perspective.
UK today, for a gallon equivalent, you would be paying $7.71. If you went to France, you'd be paying $8.49. If you went to Canada, you'd be paying over $6 per gallon. If you went to Singapore, you'd be paying over $9 per gallon. This is happening around the world. And President Biden, like all other leaders around the world, are grappling with this for their citizens. And the president is doing everything he can to reduce prices for American families.
Shut the fuck up, okay? Shut the fuck up!
Interesting what she did there. See, she mentioned Canada, which is so intertwined with our oil industry that they're basically attached at the hip to our prices. But the UK, France, Singapore, she named a bunch of these countries, and what do they have in common? Oh yeah, they don't have an oil-producing industry to speak of. So what are some of the gas prices in countries that do produce oil? Oh my. Qatar, 218, Russia, 303, Saudi Arabia, 235. What's the difference? Because we could be producing oil on increasing supply in this high-demand market, and I guess the difference is that we didn't have politicians coming into office with promises of what did Joe Biden said he was going to do?
But I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate.
Please, no. Think about it.
Yeah, I promise you we're going to end fossil fuel. Then he gets into office, and his first executive actions are hampering the oil-producing industry, and then he sits back and goes, oh, I don't know what's going on. It must be these greedy-ass oil companies, or maybe the gas stations are just price gouging. I don't know. These fucking companies. And sometimes him and other people in the administration have been a little bit honest, saying that, well, this is a transition, but not coming out and explicitly saying, yeah, we drove gas prices up because we're trying to force this transition to happen, even though it's a transition that the world isn't ready to do. Even in the best of times, doing this would have caused some major economic upset, but with the current problems that we're already having with the supply chain, this is just turning a major problem into a fucking catastrophe. And they can sit there and act like this is just gonna sort itself out, but it's not. We're only seeing the very beginning. Things are about to get really fucking ugly. Even if they turned on a dime tomorrow and stopped acting like fucktards, the damage has already been done. And while it seems to me that most people on both sides of the political divide seem to understand what caused this, denial is not just a river in Egypt.
$. I have to decide between buying gas or buying food. And guess who wins? Because I have to get to the job that I need. You can buy anything at all. That doesn't pay me enough. And people want to donate $1,000 fucking cats. $98 damn dollars at Costco to fill up my tank. $98. $5.50 a tank. $5.50 a gallon. At Costco! $5.50 a gallon at Costco! This is the work of the fucking religious right!
Oh my god, what a fucking idiot.
A CEO is not worth 351 times what I get paid! Ever!
I'll just bet that her coworkers, when they see her come walking in the break room, are thinking, yay! She's just a ray of sunshine. This is a perfect example of who you don't want to be. She thinks things are bad now. She has no idea how desperate things are about to get for a lot of people. We already live in a country where people, on average, spend over half of their money on rent. And how does this compare with the rest of the world? Not so good. So you've already got people spending a huge chunk of their paycheck just to have a place to live. So then, as gas prices rise and food prices rise, you're going to reach a point where people just totally freak the fuck out. When that happens, People like her probably ain't gonna make it. And the worsening is definitely on its way. Prices are gonna keep going up. More and more people are gonna start getting laid off. And when people do start to get really desperate and things start to get really crazy, you're in for some serious fucking disappointment if you're expecting the government to save you. That's a big misconception about the government. They're not really there to help you or protect you. They're there to take a giant shit on your head and then tell you, oh, what a lovely hat you've got. A word of advice, get a boomstick and learn how to use it. And if you already have one, buy more ammo. You couldn't possibly have too much. Sluncha.
All I have in this world is my thoughts and my words, and I don't break them for no one. You understand? So say good night to the bad guy. 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 Come on. Come on. Look at you now.